Today's episode, we're going to talk about the rise of Honda and some of the other stuff that we talk about. Enjoy.
'Cause I'm terrified, there's no more waiting. I'm running out of what comes next. Running through jobs I'm gonna hate. Living paycheck to paycheck, like my parents and their parents and their parents before them. I should be happy, I have no personal effects, but I've got my encore. I'm back living on their floor.
Welcome to another age of Jeremy LoFi edition. And this specific LoFi edition, I'm even hopefully doing a bit more LoFi for my kitchen table. Now I have Frasier, one of my favorite shows, on in the background, but I'm not using a lapel mic, and I'm using a directional mic that's attached to my H1N. And the reason why I like to do these type of podcasts is because it reminds us that this bad boy is only $99. If you have some decent software, you can get started with a podcast. And even if you were interviewing someone, you could swap this back and forth to answer and ask the questions, or possibly position it in a pattern where it's picking up both of your voices to some extent, or you can get another microphone for it. I am a big advocate for podcasts and people getting their voices out there. One of the things that I've noticed on social media a lot lately is that people see people having podcasts like, man, we need to stop letting more people have podcasts. And I actually disagree with that. Now, I do agree that it's a corporation's responsibility to have some type of intervention if there is content or speech that is going on that is harming someone or inciting violence, or has the possibility to incite violence through or harm through falsified information, where it could actually damage someone, in the case of, say, the COVID-19 virus and the information that was going out about that. But for the most part, I think that people should have the ability to say the things that they want to say, and share the information that they want to share and how they perceive it and how they learn it. And so when it comes to podcasts and people are saying people shouldn't have podcasts, is that it's your decision to listen to it. It's also your decision to do what needs to be done to find out if that information is correct. And we need to do a much better job as I want to say journalists. I'm not a journalist, but journalism, or people like myself or influencers or whatever the case, doing a better job making sure that people go into their own information and not to rely solely on the short little clips that they get on social media or on the podcast that they listen to, that they need to go do further research or academic research. And that's why I'm a fan of academia. That's just my personal opinion. I think that there are things that we need to do better in academia, but I'm a very adamant, or an advocate, I guess, on that type of structure, on testing things, publishing information, people looking at that information, seeing if they can add to it, seeing if they can change it, seeing if some isn't wrong. And that's one of the greatest things about academia. Now, one of the problems I find with that is sometimes to get that information, it costs a little bit more than I believe that it should. And I think a lot of that information should be freer, something to the public where they have access to it. But that's just my personal opinion. And the reason why I do that is that the reason why I do this podcast again is so that you can see how easy it is to make a podcast. And if you're new to this show, again, the whole show premise is about all the things that I'm learning as it relates to business, taxes, finances, as I'm building my businesses and sharing the things that I'm learning on the main episodes that traditionally come out on Tuesdays. These episodes I try to get out on Saturdays or every other Saturday, or as pretty close to Saturdays as I possibly can. And these are the things that I'm learning, the cultural things that I'm going through, more of my interpersonal thoughts on subjects, and hopefully sharing something with you where you can go out and learn about it and maybe get some insight from it and then share it, and we can make the world a different or more informed place in the things that I'm learning and the things that I'm talking about. And so one of the things that I wanted to start off today with was the books that I am currently reading. I wanted to share with you where I'm on that. So reading is super important to me. Now, I don't do immersion reading, or think immersion readings where you're listening to the audiobook and reading it at the same time. And you can actually, I would imagine, my guess is you could actually improve and speed up your reading by doing that, I would think. Or and or to be able to get through some more books. So now, because I have multiple jobs and I'm super busy, I spend a lot of time reading classical books, but I do have multiple books going at the same time, which I'm slowly working on getting better at. But one of the books that I'm currently working to finish that I was supposed to try to have at the end of January done, but now my goal is to have it here done by the middle of April, is Buddenbrooks by Thomas Mann. He is a German author, and I am learning German, so I'm also trying to read more German books as I move forward. But 2 years ago, I made a YouTube about the books that I was going to read by the following year, and it did not go well. And so I'm going to continue to follow that until those books get read and then make a video about it. So if you want to follow on that, make sure that you follow me on YouTube at Age of Jeremy. But I'm reading Buddenbrooks, and I really enjoy kind of the things that I'm learning about it. I was introduced to a new instrument called a harmonium through that book that I find kind of fascinating, or would maybe like to write some papers on. As I move forward with my goal of being more of an academic in music, anthropology, and psychology, and sociology. And to do those things, you have to become a voice in those areas. And so I have a kind of a long ways to go with that. But again, it's always about moving the needle forward. And so I'll talk more about that in a minute. But when I think about the book and the harmonium, I thought was interesting. That's one of the reasons why I enjoy reading. It's because I get introduced, especially when I read things more in depth, or I don't want to say in depth, right? I read more interesting. As I read more classics, I get introduced to a lot of things that I weren't normally introduced to or don't really come across my way. So then I go and research them. I have notes inside of OneNote of people that I want to learn about from the books that I read, things that if I want to say, if they mention a book, if that was a real book, and then I kind of add those to my plethora of things that I'm trying to focus on. And so I'm reading Buddenbrooks right now by Thomas Mann. It's about 3 generations of a family that was a prominent family in Hamburg. I think it is. And then I think it's Hamburg. Might not be Hamburg. Might be, I think it's Hamburg. But anyways, it's a place in Germany. And so it's a city in Germany, I guess, or a state in Germany. And he's the senator for the state, I believe it is, one of the sons. And we're moving into the 3rd or 4th generation now, I think. But it really goes deep into those 3 generations and how they have lost their wealth. And 2 of the concepts that I find really fascinating there's like this mixed concept of people being able to be free and do the things that they want to do. For instance, the child of the 3rd generation, I think, and going into the 4th generation of the people that are mentioned in the book, he wants to be a musician because his mother's a musician, but the family that it follows is the husband, and so they want him to be he wants to follow in the family business, but he wants to be a musician. And it's like there's a duty for families, but then there's also that want to be happy. And they spend a lot of time on that with, hold on, Kylo. That dog, I tell you what, he goes outside and he's going to bark like a little pain in the ass at nothing. And then he's going to come back in. He's going to be fine. He's going to hear something. Then he's going to go back and bark. And it's going to get the neighbor dogs barking. And it's just going to be a ridiculous barking fiasco going on in this house, in the backyard. Anyway, yep, there he goes. You won't be able to hear him. Maybe you'll be able to hear him. I don't think you'll be able to hear him. Maybe you will. I don't know. But I might have to pause this and you'll hear a split. And then I'll go and grab that guy and bring him back. Hopefully he'll bring, because I don't want to bother the neighbors. It's getting late. Oh, well, back to the podcast and we'll see what happens. So there's this concept in the book where it's talking about like this need to like follow up with the family and create the family and create those generations and how those generations separate and how that wealth is lost in generations. But then there's also this concept of people being able to find the passionate thing that they are for. And this book takes place, I want to say in the late 1800s, but it was probably written, it might have even been written around that time, maybe in the 1900s. I'm not 100% sure. I'll do some more research on that. I've just been focusing on reading it. And so when like one of the women, and you may have heard me talk about this, her name's Tony, she was forced into a marriage that she wanted to be into when she was younger. And then she finally thought that she found, so in the marriage that she was forced into, it didn't work out the way that she wanted it to. And then so the thought process is, oh, now the next marriage she's going to get to choose to be in, and it also doesn't work out the same way. So there's these concepts of like, okay, well, would it have been better to done it one way instead of another way because of the fact that one way you would have chosen to do it because you did it out of love and it still ended like shit, or because you were forced into it and it still ended like shit. And that's one of the biggest things that they talk about, concepts that I get a lot inside of this book. And I really enjoy that because it's like, is there a sense of duty, and would your life be happier following that sense of duty to a family, or would your life be happier not having that sense of duty? It's really a risk that you take because things could end up completely different ways than you thought that they would have otherwise. And so that's something they talk a lot about inside of the book. So I don't want to give too much of the book away. So go reading Buddenbrooks. The other book that I'm reading right now is Etymology Essays and Etymologist, A Short Introduction by Oxford. So I got really interested into these short introduction by Oxford books. They're on specific topics, and they're written by, most of them are probably written by PhDs or academics from all over the world, but they're published through Oxford Press. And so they have like short introductions to folk music, a very short introduction to agriculture, a very short introduction to orchestra, a very short introduction to all of these things. And I find them really fascinating. My main focus that I'm focusing on right now inside of those books and the things that I'm learning is really geared just towards the music piece of it, and then eventually I'll gear myself back towards reading more stuff with consumer innovation, consumer research, and reworking the Age of Radio application. I just got bogged down because our insurance business is taking off and Merlin's taking off, and so I'm working to figure out how to get more people or more help to then get some of these other businesses going off of the ground where I don't have to do so much and I can just pay them. But it's because of the time constraints that I have, it's kind of feeling a little bit, just being honest, overwhelming in a lot of areas. And that's something that a lot of business owners, I feel, will probably understand, that pieces and parts of it can be very overwhelming, especially when you're trying to grow from a managerial perspective or a leadership perspective and grow your business where it can go and be autonomous apart from you. And so anyways, back to the music things. Those are really the things that I'm focused on, because those are the things that I really, really enjoy and I really, really love. And I made this decision to myself that moving forward over the next 40 years, I'm going to do the things that I specifically find passionate and happy about and integrate them into the things that I also do. Right. And so, and really get really pinpoint on a lot of those specific things. So when I look at, sorry, I'm watching Frasier and laughing. So I'm reading Ethnomusicology, a very short introduction, and then I'm also reading ethnomusical essays by a man named Bruno Nettle, or Dr. Bruno Nettle, and he is really I would say the forefather of ethnomusicology from the things that I can understand now, from my interest in ethnomusicology. And I really enjoy these essays. I'm only into the second set of the essays, but they're really talking about like what ethnomusicology is, how it came to be, how it's associated with anthropology. And one of the things that I'm very disappointed in myself with, I remember working at Dillard's as a salesman. I spent a lot of my time in sales up until finishing college and getting into the bank. And I was a shoe salesman, a men's shoe salesman, and then the more lucrative women's shoe salesman at Dillard's in Flagstaff back in 2004, 2005. Maybe, 2005, 2004, 2006 or something along those lines. And a gentleman asked me, he was a retired engineer, and he worked there for fun because I guess those are the things that men choose to do when they're bored rather than going and doing more interesting things in retirement, or maybe he needed the money. I don't know. So he asked me one day what I'm going to school for, because I started going back to school. And I was like, I'm not really sure yet. And I said, but one of the things that I really find fascinating is anthropology, because I had a mentor when I was in community college in around 2000 and 2001, when I dropped out of high school and went to college, that she was focusing on becoming a PhD in anthropology. I hope that she's there. I forgot her name by this period of time, but we worked together in an office inside of Glendale Community College. And so when I worked there and was with her, she had told me that taught me about anthropology, and I started researching anthropology, and I bought anthropology books, and I took a course on anthropology, and I found it super fascinating, anthropology. And so when we think of ethnomusicology, it's a mix of music along with anthropology, and looking at music in a cultural context, and the artifacts and the symbolisms and the way in which the music either helped shape the culture or the culture helped shape the music within a specific group of people. And that's one of the things that I had find fascinating, and I wish that I had spent my life really focusing and doing that type of thing rather than going into finance. The caveat, not the caveat, but the ironic thing is that now going into business has provided me the ability to now study and do and buy and go and do a lot of the things that I wanted to do because of building wealth inside of the businesses that we own, or because of my understanding of finance and stuff. Because, now I'm in a point in place where I don't feel like I feel loyal to my friends and family and my business partners as it relates to the businesses that we're doing. But if for some reason one of our businesses happened and I wasn't able to continue my business or get it to where I need, or had to do that part-time while I got another position in another bank or whatever the case is, because I traditionally like the concept of banking and I like the concept of financial advising, but I would rather do it for myself and focus on taxes and all this stuff. But let's just say something did happen, not that it's going to, and I had to do that, I would fight for more and more money, because the money becomes the resource to be able to do the things that you want. And I find it very difficult to have empathy towards people whose lives are not where they want them to go because they feel that money is this evil thing. The pursuit of money for its own ends, I think, is maybe possibly an evil thing or something that I'm not interested in. But money in the pursuit of being able to then feed people and then to build libraries and to build buildings and to give to the community and to give to your family, and to help people attain their dreams, that is by far one of the most virtuous pursuits. Now, do I think that it needs to be that way? No. And should we be an advocate for changing the way in which our corporate structure and our infrastructure and our government structure works, so that we could have a more socialist perspective, and not a socialist perspective in the sense that, I'm going to make money and the government's going to take it all and then redistribute that wealth, not in that sense, but in a socialist concept where, I want to make sure that my neighbor's kids get to college, or the school that's by my house, I want to make sure that those kids don't have to be hungry because their parents can't feed them because of the decisions that they made. Those are really altruistic and virtuous things that I believe that we all should strive for. Will I judge someone who doesn't strive for them? Of course not, because everybody's going to be at different places in their lives, and everybody's going to go be at different places in their religious journey. But that's the socialism that I'm talking about. I want to make sure that my nieces and nephews and cousins and everybody that's involved in my life, they're prosperous. And the way to do that is to go have a pursuit of money. Now, so back to the irony piece of it was that, it was ironic that now I make a bunch of money and I can now do these things. Would I have otherwise been able to do it the other way? I don't know. I believe so, especially as technology progresses, and we need to make sure that we're using technology 100% to our advantage all of the time, and getting on platforms and learning how it works and utilizing it and growing, because that growth and that pursuit and that change and being a cog, whether you're a business owner or an employee, being a cog in a larger wheel or a piece in a larger web that's streaming the future, that's stringing together the future of our universe and our world and future generations, that is something I believe that we should all strive for. But we should never judge people if they're not wanting to do that, because each and every individual should have the choice to live the life and believe the things that they want to believe. And I will always 100%, believe that and fight for that. So the books that I'm reading, Budenbrook's Ethnomusicology, and then a very short introduction to ethnomusicology. So my goal is to wrap up 2 of those books by the end of April, and then keep the essays continuously going. And then I've been adding more and more musicology books to my my library. And so one of the ways to do that, and I recommend this for you, and this is a really big tip and something that's really helped me, is that if you want to find more thought-provoking information on a subject or on a topic, you can do it in two ways. There is the learning pathway and then and then an academic pathway. So the learning pathway is whenever you want to learn something, go to Wiley Plus, go to Pearson's. These are college textbook companies or publishing companies, and go and find subjects that are from that textbook. And those textbooks are written in a way that will get you from understanding something from point A, applying it in a thoughtful way, in an application. I mean, either in a controlled environment application or in the application of writing and thinking about it and being able to talk about it and speak about it and get you from point A to point B. That's why textbooks, in my opinion, work really, really good for learning stuff, because you have to learn the information, then you have to use the information, then that information then is reused inside of the chapters as they go, so that can then reinforce the memorization of that information to get you to a place where you can move forward with that. Okay. So you can find those textbooks by going to textbook publishing companies and just looking up the subject. That's something that I do. I buy lots of books that way, and that's how I learn about a lot of things that I'm interested in. The second thing, and then I guess this is 2.5 things, and then we'll go to or 1.5, and then we'll go to the second thing. The 1.5 thing is that you can also look at the subjects inside of a college. So if you go to Northwestern University, I love, I'm a big fan of Yale College, just because one of my favorite presidents, Taft went to Yale. He's from Ohio originally. I think that his life and the stuff that he did is very unknown. I don't think he was a great president. I think he was a really good justice of the Supreme Court. And I think that his father founded the Skull and Crossbones Society, which one of my biggest regrets in life is that I'll never be part of the Skull and Crossbones Society, but that's neither here nor there, I guess. So if you go to like Yale, if you go to UCLA, if you go to Northwestern, if you go to the University of Illinois, if you go to Arizona State University, Northern Arizona University, and you search through their courses, you can find courses on something, and then you can find the textbooks that goes with that course by going to the bookstore. And so you'll take the course number, the section number, and the book number. And this is something that I was really intrigued about, because Neil deGrasse, I've been doing this for years, way before TikTok and way before X and way before whatever, maybe not way before them, but before they started getting to the level that they're at now, or before they were created to some extent, and when the internet was out. And so Neil deGrasse Tyson actually mentioned this on one of the podcasts. This is one of the best ways to learn information for free. And I, to this day, still find it is the best way to learn information for free. You can, with a couple $100, you can learn everything that you need to learn from basic physics by buying the main, I forgot what the name is, but University Physics textbook for $89. And you can teach yourself all about physics enough to be pretty good at understanding all of it and have conversations about it if you read through that entire textbook. Again, there's other things that you need to know inside of that, like calculus and things of that nature. But the basic point is most of the textbooks and things that you can learn, you can do that by going to those colleges and finding those textbooks. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I highly recommend that people try to actually, no, wait, maybe those are the two things. I might have forgotten what the second thing was, and I'm not plugged in to re-listen to this and cut this and splice it together, because it is a lo-fi and it's kind of going in raw for the most part. And so let me just see. I'm going to sit in silence. Or maybe you can hear a little bit of Frasier in the background. I'm just going to think and make sure that I what was the other thing that I think that people's really good for learning? Textbooks. Oh, yes. And then the other thing that you can do, the second thing that you can do is, if you're interested in a specific field, if you go to the faculty that is in charge of that field, like the department head and all the professors and all of that, you can get a good bio. And in those bios, it will tell you the things and their achievements and the publications that they've published, right? Because again, the idea of college is, besides the bachelor's piece of it, to kind of also train workers, but it's really designed to get you good in a field that where you could utilize it in multi different capacities, as opposed to a trade where the trade is like specifically to like a specific trade. And then and some of that's kind of like mixes and meshes because accounting is kind of like also a trade. But anyway, and so essentially it takes you from that bachelor's to that master's to that PhD level where you can then teach it and then you can write about it. And whether you're an accountant or a bookkeeper or an ethnomusicologist or whatever, and you actually do field work and you have career work and all that, you can still teach it and still do stuff with it. It's not designed solely just so you can then teach it to the people to become teachers. That's a stupid fucking narrative and a stupid fucking concept that people say a lot of the times to make either themselves feel better about not going to college, one, or to downgrade certain degrees that people get in the field. But PhDs, even though they do teach it, they are also doing stuff to move that field forward if they're experts in that field. My professor during 2009 was called into 2008-2009 was called by the Obama administration. He was a PhD from Arizona. His PhD, I don't think was from, it might have been from Arizona State, but he taught at Arizona State. And his PhD was actually in derivatives markets. And so when we did his class and he was talking to us about, I believe it was, I forgot what derivative it was, if it was interest rate swaps. I think it had to do with interest rate swaps. And we had to read his publication that got him his thesis, if I'm not mistaken, that he did for his thesis to get his PhD. It's beautiful work, fantastic. We utilized it. We had to write stuff about it. We had to utilize it in our stuff, so forth, so forth. And he gave it to us for free, which I thought was fantastic, because then you're thinking, oh, well, he's just trying to sell his own stuff, but that's not the case. Because a lot of the times thesis paperworks actually are available. You can find a lot of them through Google Scholar. Anyway, and so if you go through the faculty, you can find out the publications that they're doing, because those are really things that are moving those fields forward, and that's how you can stay up to date. I guess a third thing that you could do if you want to stay up to date on fields and what's going on in them is to apply to journals. Like there's a Journal of Ethnomusicology. The problem with that is they usually, because they're memberships to a group or to an association, they do have high barrier to entry on a lot of them, and they do cost a lot because a lot goes into publishing them, especially from the academic route, and the academics need to be compensated for the field work. That is something that I feel that should be more moved to mainstream free, because a lot of it will make it easier for us to get information as citizens to be able to make better decisions about the things that the government and the public sector, whether that's like colleges or I guess medicine or FDA or whatever the case is, that they're putting out there so that we can read about. And so that's one of the things that if you've ever watched Don't Look Up is really all about, is the peer review process, how we come up with something safe, things of that nature, because a lot of that was all broken down during the coronavirus or the COVID-19 piece, because we don't teach a lot of how that piece works inside of our society, because it's not 100% involved with civics, but we don't have civics anymore. So a lot of people don't understand how our system works. And that has to do with a growing population and education system of political groups getting involved with that education system and not just letting it stand up from a scientific perspective of education. So then we have politics inside of our education, which, while I do believe that people can believe the things that they want to believe, but there are certain things that people believe that should just be left out of teaching, educating people, and then you should be educating them in those other things as well. So that's just, my opinion, and that's why we have podcasts. So that's what I'm specifically reading. So ethnomusicology, Budenbrooks, and ethnomusicology, a very short introduction. And the first ethnomusicology I said was essays. And so along with that music journey, a lot of it, if you're going to be a PhD in musicology, you have to learn multiple languages. So up to a certain degree level, the main language that you have to learn, which is usually a requirement, I believe Yale makes it a specific requirement, is German. You have to be you have to take an exam, and it has to be like level 300 level German work, because a lot of the times Germany and Austria and German-speaking countries, I guess, which are mainly German and Austrian, I believe part of Switzerland, but I could be wrong about that. So don't yell at me about it. Not that you would yell at me about it, but so much work was done in Germany and Austria to create what we have for classical music. And usually when you're doing a musicology degree in the West, we focus on the West Orchestra, and which is fine because it's beautiful and has a lot of it did a lot of things to impact a lot of music from a global perspective. I find ethnomusicology a little bit better because, to me, I like gut-wrenching stuff that has to do with what we learn from rituals or what we learn about the feelings that we have about things or their place in the world. Like folk music, I think is fantastic. Blues music, jazz music. And I don't think that any one style of music personally is better than the other because they all provide some interesting things to us inside of the world. Now, when we go back to musicology, degree music, it's usually Western style or what we think of the Europe style of music, or we have the orchestra. There's so much stuff had been impacted by Germany though, in the West orchestra. And I guess you could include Germany and all of that, in Italy. But so a lot of times you have to use German. Some programs like the University of Arizona, they have you learn German, Italian, and French to a specific degree. I don't think the degree is as high as you do with Yale, but you have to know German. It's one of them. And then in ethnomusicology, you traditionally have to use another language based off of the country that you're interested in. So like if I was younger now and I had the capacity of where I am now in my life, a lot of my work would probably have to do with Denmark and Danish and Greenland. Just because I think that Greenland mystifies me because there's not a lot about it and it has been around for a long time. So like Eric the Red was, I think, kicked out of Denmark, and then Eric the Red had his ship, and then he ended up finding Greenland, and so they settled Greenland, and so and Greenland's part of North America, which we don't talk about it a lot. And so one of the things that I would probably start a lot of my work with would be in Denmark. So if I were doing this, it would have to be German. The other two languages that you have to learn is either Italian or French, I believe, or Latin to some degree. But then you have your ethnomusicology languages, and then you usually use languages for the other things that you're trying to learn. Like I said, I'm kind of interested in the harmonium. Now, the harmonium's still really big in India, but during the period that this book was written, the harmonium was a really important book or tool or instrument in Germany at the time based off of certain plays that kids were being involved in. And so it would be interesting to do some research on that and to maybe write a paper or something around that specific piece. And so what I'm trying to convey in all of this is the process that we go through in academia when we try to research and learn about things and then share those things with the future or to citizens to learn about them things so they can make their lives more enriching in some capacity. And so I think that one of the reasons why I like doing this specific podcast, because I have a passion for these types of things, is also too, we're missing this piece in our society, I feel, because most of our society, unless we're specifically involved in it or want to learn about it, all that we are pushed to is about money, consumerism, and nothing about academics, nothing about literati, nothing about being literate in other things, and being more cultural. And I'm not saying that someone who doesn't do those things is wrong. I'm just saying that we can utilize these things, teach our children about them, teach future generations, and they create, in my opinion, can create a better, well-rounded individual to be a better, more productive member of society. That doesn't say that if you don't do that, it can't make people a different, better, productive member of society. But we are losing a lot of this stuff because the way in which consumerism, and the way in which media works, and the way in which things are sold to us usually doesn't involve these types of specific things. And so that's essentially how the musicology stuff works. So I'm trying to learn German a lot more. I've been listening to it while I sleep. I've been listening to music, I've been watching it. I haven't been studying it as much as I want. If I could get to studying exercises inside of my book that I have and to do some Duolingo every single day or to hire a tutor here, I would be really happy with it, because even if and here's the thing about goals in life, if I would be fine spending the rest of my life next 15 years working towards my musicology degree or a PhD in musicology in some capacity. To get that would be such a fantastic thing. Just to be able to know that was the thing when I was 12 years old, when I picked up my first guitar, not to get too sentimental, when I learned how to play the guitar, when I learned how to read music, when I learned how to play folk music, when I wrote my first song, when we talked about music, when we would talk about classical music, when I would go start my piano lessons, when I played saxophone. Music is so wonderful to me. And to know that I had left and removed it so far from my life because I thought that the only thing that was important was getting money in any way whatsoever, rather than creating beautiful things inside of the world. The world has missed out on not to say that I was going to be amazing in the stuff, but the world missed out on things that I would have created if I had stayed in that. And so the goal now is to create those things and move those pieces forward in my life. But we have plenty of time, and if it happens at the end of the day, it doesn't mean I need to go and it'd be fun to be a lecturer. It doesn't mean that I have to go and always just do that for my job, but to move towards that pathway would just be so beautiful and so fantastic, in my opinion. So that's where I'm learning a German. It's going okay. Have a lot of work to do. And then I've been practicing my guitar. So my goal is to practice the German for about 30 minutes a day for right now, because we do have so many businesses going on, and then to practice the guitar. And I've been doing that pretty good for about a month or so. So I'm okay with that piece. Not the German practicing every day. I listen to German every single day, so I can hear the words a lot better than I otherwise could have. But as far as practicing it every day, I only get to practice maybe once or twice a week in regards to the book and the grammar of it, and how the der words work and deer works and donka deer. And I'm saying it not with how Germans would say it. And so to me, that's, I'm making progress because I can understand it and hear it a lot better, but a lot of more progress needs to be made. But that's where I'm at on my learning journey. And the other part that I'm on my learning journey, and I'll end with this because I know that this has been going for a little bit of time. The other part that I'm on my journey is learning in general. One of the things, for some reason, over the last couple of years, being the boss, I guess, for the most part, I get frustrated sometimes when I am told what to do. And that is something that I need to learn to be better at, and would love to learn more of my skill set around those types of things and leadership, and to become a better leader for people. I think that one of the things, and if I can do that, I will be much better for future people that I manage and grow and go as I become CEOs and run boards and do all this other stuff inside of the world, is have to always consider continuously learning and leadership and being a servant to people. And learning from that perspective. I had a really good conversation with Johnny Crypto. He was in Arizona on business for his main career job that he has until he can get to where he wants to be for Merlin. And so we were sitting talking, and I was asking him some things as we were having a Merlin meeting at lunch, and I was trying to gather some information. He brought up a few good things about like how you teach, how you talk to people inside of an organization when they're asking you questions, and rather than telling them the answers, kind of using like, in some sense, a Socratic method to get them to find the answer for themselves, or to get to understand, or to get them speak about it so that they can uncover something about what it is that you're talking about to move them forward. And it's a really great coaching tool. And I agreed with him 100%. That I need to do better at that. And he wasn't saying that he wasn't saying that. I was just asking questions. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I need to do really, really better at that. And then it made me start thinking about this whole thing about how no matter at what level you are, you always need to be learning and working on things that are going to get to you better. Now, I don't think that you need to work on things that you're not good at, right? Like, I know that my point is that I'm a strong leader now, but that doesn't mean that I can't be a stronger leader and to focus on that, because we want to focus on the things that we are good at and the positions that we're in, and not focus on the things 100% that we suck at, unless they're what we would call fatal flaws. But I don't do enough learning and leadership and training in that to keep me better and moving forward with that and getting better at it and getting stronger and lifting it up to lift all the people up that are underneath me, whether it's in Age of Radio, 3T Warrior Academy, in a board that I work in a community that I'm a part of, or my goals to be into politics, which I'm getting back into now. I'm going to work on being the precinct committeeman again for my Country Gables precinct here, and I have all kinds of great ideas, and I really want to set the time for it. And so, like, I know that these are the pieces of the things that need to be in my life that I'm moving forward. And I encourage you to find those pieces and just focus on those pieces. Focus on those 2 or 3 things in your life that you really have a passion for, that you care about, and not to focus just on utilizing them to make money as of right now, but just to focus on getting better at those things and continuously learning and getting better at those things. I think that I could do a lot better at coaching people. I could do a lot better at leading people in a lot of ways. We could do a lot better at communication. Sometimes when you get caught up, and I'm going to use the rat race, but it's not really the rat race, because we have the ability to manage our own time and all that stuff in our businesses that we own. But when you get caught up in just the day-to-day of doing it, You need to make sure that you're sharpening all these other areas in your life. And that's one of the things that I have let go over these last couple of months. And I can feel that I'm getting dull in a lot of areas. So it's really time to focus on sharpening them. So with that, as I always say, be thankful, grateful, and kind. And I will talk with you next time. Bye. And before we end, I do want to say that I totally did not note down that I wanted to talk to you about the games that I was playing, because games and ludology are also super important. So I wanted to talk about the Rise of Ronin and Honda, because I did not talk about that in any of this. So that being said, let's talk about that before we close it out. So I have been playing 2 games, one Street Fighter 6. I watched some kids play Street Fighter 6 this last 2 weeks ago at Game On Expo, and I was like, man, I really miss playing fighting games. So I picked that bad boy up, and I've been spending nonstop time. I played it 1 or 2 times, but I've been spending a lot of time with Honda, and I thought it was really cool. And this is what I love doing research on. So this goes back to the research piece, is they have this place, this hub where you can go and play people around the world, right? Makes sense. And it's kind of like this arcade within the game. And they use a product called Azure Play. It's not Playground. It's like Play Lab or PlayFab. And it is like an Azure product by Microsoft that companies and game companies can use to create a interactive communal experience within inside of the game. And so this is one of the things that I find really cool. When you're playing things, when you're doing things, you can learn about other things that companies are doing. Then you can go research them, see if it makes sense for you, or more importantly, you can innovate on it if you're finding a flaw in the things that it's going. So I am horrible at Street Fighter, but it's really, really fun to play. The storyline piece of it's kind of lame in my opinion, but I think that playing it and finding people online to play with would be a lot better. One of the things that I do find frustrating is for all of these games nowadays, you have to have like their publishing companies like username and password access to like utilize a lot of the game, the interactive gameplay stuff. So what I mean by that is that I have to have Capcom's username and password to have a Capcom account to play Capcom games online. I have to have, a Ubisoft account to play Ubisoft games online, and so forth and so forth. And I find that really, really annoying. The other game that I bought that I've been playing on PS5, and I recommend that you get, is Rise of Ronin, especially like Japanese samurai kind of games. Now, the gameplay is very, very difficult. The concept is that, without going into it, you're a twin inside of you have a twin brother or twin sister or whatever kind of person that you make, and you're part of this like group, and then that group gets banded up, and you become a Ronin, traveling, trying to figure out some stuff that I don't want to give the purpose of the game away. But you're traveling around trying to find some information, and it works. It's very similar to Assassin's Creed in some contexts, like with assassinating people and getting onto the rooftops and things like that. It's not. I wouldn't say the gameplay's clunky with that. The fighting mechanics are a little frustrating. I'm playing it on super easy, but I don't play a lot of these types of games, so sometimes I'm not as good as I probably could be, or it's just really hard. And that's just the game. So I'm playing on easy. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I like the storyline kind of so far. The open world, from what I've read and what I've heard, is really, really big, but it's not as good as Ghost of Tsushima, which I also have, but I haven't played it to the point of the open world. But like, you can get all kind, and it takes place in 1850s Japan, if I'm not mistaken, or the 1870s Japan. So there's a lot of like Western style things that are happening inside of the country. Like Yokohama has like Western style buildings. It almost looks very similar to like you would think of European style or colonial. Obviously because they're trying to colonize Japan, I guess. So that part's really cool. Like the weapon structures, you have all like traditional Japanese weaponry, which I'm really fascinating with. You have different file styles that you can utilize when you're fighting. And so right now, those are the games that I'm currently trying to play. I'm just being real and transparent with you guys. I have no real pathway right now to play games on a regular basis, just because stuff kind of comes at me in a lot of different ways during the week, and I don't have a time to do all of the things that I want to do, and that's one of the things that I'm working on and trying to get better at. And I get better at that when I work on myself and get more in tune with myself and more aligned with the universe and more aligned, my aura more clean, or my aura in good standing, or a stronger aura. And it kind of these pieces fall together. And so when I'm working on those things, I can see how these pieces are falling together of how the trajectory of my life should be going based on me getting better, more in tune with godhood and things of that nature. So with that, be thankful, grateful, and kind. We'll talk with you next time. Thank you so much for listening to The Age of Jeremy. Again, my name is Jeremy Quintanilla. You can find me on all socials at Age of Jeremy. I'm recording this on an H1 in by itself. I am mixing this bad boy on Steinberg's Cubase using Waves plugins. Our opening song was Brave Faces Everyone by Spanish Love Songs. Our closing song was Threatening Each Other Recapitalism by Illuminati Hotties. And one last time, be thankful, grateful, and kind, and we'll talk with you next time. Bye.